My name is Alex Williams, founder of the New Stack, and you are listening to the New Stack Analyst Podcast. Each week, we look at application development and management at scale. Thanks for joining us. Now on to the show. Morning, everyone. Welcome to Node Interactive. My name is Alex Williams. I'm founder and editor-in-chief of the New Stack. We focus on explanation and analysis of application development and management at scale. So our focus is not exactly on the news cycle. We do follow the news cycle, but we try to provide some context and understanding for the market. We've been doing these pancake breakfasts over the past several months as a way just to get the conversation going at conferences, to help kick them off. Sometimes they're on day one, sometimes they're on day two. But the idea here is just to, is to have a pretty informal conversation. So we encourage you to ask questions. My colleague Joab Jackson, who is the New Stack's managing editor, will be in the crowd and asking questions himself and providing a microphone to you if you have a question that you'd like to ask. So my thoughts for this discussion are really about the conversations that people are having with developers about Node.js and its evolution. And that's really what I want to talk about, are the dynamics that we're seeing in the enterprise and what are some of the dimensions that need to still be explored, looking also at some of the upsides that people are seeing with Node.js, but also some of the downsides too. I'd like to introduce the panel now to just introduce themselves. Why don't you go from left to right? Matteo?
Hi everyone, I am Motoko Lena. I work for a company called NearForm. I don't know, we do Node.js consulting. We're based in Europe with customers both in the US and in Europe mostly, but whatever. And yeah, I am a software architect. I run teams, run projects, and do a lot of open source. You will be seeing me rambling today and tomorrow about some open source libraries. So.
Great. Hi, I'm Dan Shaw, D. Shaw, CTO of NodeSource, the enterprise node company. And you may have heard my voice rumbling in your ear holes on NodeUp. So hopefully I'll rumble some more.
Hi, I'm Ashley Williams. I work for this small company called NPM, which you may or may not have heard of. I work there as a developer community and content manager, which doesn't really make any sense. So what I like to say is, if you don't understand how NPM works, that's my problem. So I write lots of docs. I also write lots of code. And as you guys may know, NPM is starting to do some enterprise offerings. So I think this will be a great talk.
Well, terrific. So I would just like to get the conversation started about asking each of you, what are the conversations you're starting to hear as you're talking to people, who are that general enterprise developer, who are really the ones who are starting to really adopt Node.js. So Dan, why don't we start with you? And I'm just going to get something real quick, so you guys get going.
Okay. Fantastic. So one of the biggest things that we've seen over the last couple years is Node is incredibly powerful and empowering for UI, user interface engineering, front-end teams. They're able to accelerate their development from a 6-month cycle down to about a 1-month cycle, and that's fairly amazing from the developer's perspective. But then that team will finish their project and hand it over to the ops team, and ops is like, oh my god, like, what did you hand me? I have no idea what this thing is, and how do I plug it into my network operating center and really understand and manage that software. So that's been a big challenge for these operations. That they have 10 to 15 years of experience doing enterprise Java deployments, and having Node come in that is really empowering for the developers, but hasn't had that connective tissue at an operation level. Has been frustrating, and it's great to be able to come in and really begin to introduce that into the ecosystem and help out there.
Ashley?
Sure. So I think you make a bunch of good points, and I completely agree with you. But I think something that we're seeing as Node moves into the enterprise is that enterprise developers, they're programmers, but they have significantly higher expectations of the tooling. And right now, Node doesn't really have that. We're very bootstrapped. And a lot of what we hear from the open source community talking to enterprise developers is, well, just use the command line, just use Vim. And that's not really going to work. And if Node.js is going to succeed, we're going to really need to step it up as far as the tooling goes. So that's not just in operations, but it also means things like full-fledged like IDEs and other types of tooling.
So what is it? So what is it lacking specifically in terms of the tooling? What are some of the complaints that you're hearing out there?
Let's see. So, I mean, I guess to start with, like, there's very little like autocomplete, like just simple things that you see in IDEs, being able to like see all the APIs, just also automations, things with testing, like the way you take a bunch of the little pieces, and like this is also a problem that we see in Node open source world, is that we have lots of little pieces and just absolutely no way to put them together. And so with that connective tissue with the operations, it's the same in the development workplace. Like you have to make those decisions. There's not curated lists and environments of tools. You have to put those together for yourself.
Matteo, you are out there a lot, working with, lots of different enterprises, and when people talk about, Node.js, what are some of the experiences that you're finding noteworthy that are trending now that give you some thoughts about the direction overall of the community and the tool development?
So for me, the thing that one of the most important things that we have in the Node world is about the community and how we collaborate with each other and the way we collaborate. And what the difficulty that I see most of the time when I'm on the trenches is explain enterprises and enterprise developers this new way of collaboration, because it's not just a tech revolution. It's also a way. These also change the way we work, and there is all the fact of reusing software, all the fact of properly version software. Semantic versioning is still a big question mark in the enterprise.
In the everywhere.
In the everywhere, but, yeah, exactly. But the way. So there are a lot of high expectations in the enterprise when they start adopting Node, and some of those expectations follows.
What are some of the expectations that they have?
Oh, well, they as Disho said, they expect, given the number of case studies, they expect to ship in 1 month. Like this is what it is. So they expect to have a general boost in terms of development, performance, and costs. And from time to time, it's hard to achieve because of lack of collaboration between teams and the all not invented here syndrome and all the stuff. So yeah, so this is possibly the biggest challenge that there is adopting in the enterprise, trying to bring the way like let's work together, let's reach a goal together, rather than just build a little closed thing which is built by my team, managed by my team closely, and so on. So this is, and all apart from all what you have already said, which is possibly, and I completely agree on the operational thing. That was number one possibly, but you said that.
So there's an interesting pattern that has come out in the enterprise where a lot of the node development that we do is breaking down these monolithic systems, and that's fun and productive. But the interesting emergent behavior that we see coming out of that is not just its node's impact on monolith, but its impact on silos inside of enterprise organization. So if you take the example of PayPal, and one of the enterprise companies that's really been spearheading and kind of out in front of the pack, and see how nodes played out in that organization, and begins to have team members across completely different units now being able to collaborate, because everything's broken down into modules. Everything's broken down into something that it's not the entire application of a thing. There's your session management inside of the entire application of a thing, and that session management can be taken and shared in this other application. And so they have this common point of reference that they can work together, and it really changes the way organizations collaborate together in meaningful ways that they haven't been able to, logistically able to, in prior years. That's been one of the most exciting things that I've seen.
So with this evolution that we're seeing with the enterprise itself, one of the challenges that that I hear from people is about how you mentioned this, how organizations are organized, right? A lot of it comes down to how kind of corporations just generally are organized, sure. Right? I was hearing stories just last week about, they get all the kind of the managers in a room, and everyone then looks at software and say, well, what's your problem, right? Mm-hmm. But actually it should be the other way around, shouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Like software should be saying, well, what's your problem? Mm-hmm. Because of the iterative process that comes with software, right? And in kind of the contrast to that with, like, you have these, maybe you want to see waterfall kind of environments. Right. So how are you seeing that how are you seeing that bridging? Because software by definition is flexible, right? Mm-hmm. It's soft, right? But and these other systems are very brittle. Right. I mean, how are some of the ways you're seeing these kind of like these two worlds really find their way, through this, this paradox really that they face?
There are a few different architectural patterns that seem to play out, generally riffing on some sort of starvation pattern. In the enterprise, you never really get rid of anything. So if you started out with Fortran, you probably still have that Fortran somewhere. Yeah. If you had a moment of C++ stack, you probably still have that somewhere. And if you had 10 to 15 years of Java, you're going to have that around. But introducing Node into the mix, has come in a couple different ways. Either you put Node in front of that, so you begin sort of picking off the pieces and building muscle, building experience, and start small and really work your way up. Netflix is a great example of that, where it started a very small corner of the application, and now has spread throughout .com and really sort of taken over things there. PayPal started as a service, and an individual service that was taken and done with Node, and then kind of rinsed and repeated throughout that system. And the third archetype is the way the team at Intuit did it, where they had a new service introduced behind the primary code base, and sort of supplementing that and adding that new capability that the core service calls out to, and then Node is introduced in the mix that way.
So Ashley, we were talking a little bit beforehand, and you were talking about kind of the question about the enterprise itself, right? And is Node the enterprise, or is enterprise Node really? What is this inverse relationship that you're seeing, with Node.js and how it coexists with the enterprise? Is Node.js impacting the enterprise, or is enterprise really impacting Node?
Right. Well, like all dichotomies, that's a false one. But anyways, so yeah, I had been having an interesting conversation about what the topic of this really meant. Was like a Node. What does Node mean for the enterprise? And so I think we can all agree that the enterprise has decided that Node has a lot of value for it. So to say, what is Node going to offer as Node itself to the enterprise is, in a certain sense, kind of a boring question. It's like, we know, like, we'll have JavaScript on the front end and the back end. Things will be modular, they'll be smaller, they'll be more maintainable. But I think our real question, and this really depends, all of us depend on this, is Node's success is definitely going to depend on its acceptance in the enterprise. And so I think our question is, how does Node need to change in order to make it work for the enterprise?
That's a good question then. So Matteo, how does it need to change?
Well, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not that it needs to change. You need to add something. You don't need to change, because you don't need to change what we have right now. We need to do more.
I think I agree with that. That's what I meant, I guess.
We don't need to change. Well, in the latest project,
It's a relative question.
we were able to basically rewrite the thing 6 times because of changing requirements and changing the way small modules play with each other. It will all quick, and this is something that in the enterprise is of extreme value. What is missing are, as we said, a little bit of tools, and not just tools, but also like write-ups and blog articles and talks on how to do large-scale software development with Node, because we have been doing it, and as you guys, but there is no real common knowledge about this. So
I think this really speaks to something you were saying before, and it's something that I really love about Node, and it's the community. And you said that something that you're seeing changing when you're bringing Node enterprise into the enterprise is this idea of collaboration, and that there's kind of almost maybe a resistance to collaboration, or just not the pathways there. And what I wanted to ask you when I heard you say that was, Node itself doesn't come with those pathways. What do we think those pathways are, and how can we bake that into Node and the Node experience to make it something that's significantly more digestible for enterprise organizations?
And what's the impact of the lack of those pathways? I'd be curious.
Well, so the lack of those pathways is, again, in my coming from recent experience, we had to write 3 different teams wrote an adapter for an API layer.
Oh no.
And just from a basic business perspective, looking at a language that the enterprise knows very well, which is money, because the cost of that it's really high. And then we had to do them all over again because it's in the version. So this is basically, there is a business case for having those pathways of collaboration. The problem is, most of the time, a lot of the way teams are set up in the enterprise is they are a little bit walled gardens where the little kids all play together, but they don't play with the kids on the kids next door.
When the ball goes over the fence, it's gone forever.
Yeah, it's gone. So this is the challenge that we have. I have no answer on how to break those, on how to make those collaboration happening. In this project, given the fact that everybody noticed about all this massive waste, redundancy and so on, actually things are being start to be put in place to avoid those and have ways of collaboration between teams and so on. But this comes for the most of the enterprise to have more radical changes that coming to Node itself. And this is where the most of the value, probably from adopting Node as such a throughout the company, will change things for them and makes them way more productive. So.
But then we're back to changing the company and not changing Node.
Yes. I am so happy with what it is. I am the only problems on Node are related for debugging and some of the stuff that is not and some of the tools that are not there or not fully documented or not really usable. Let me make my one name, MDB. So,
do you think Node as it stands right now is going to succeed in the enterprise? Do you think that companies change that quickly?
It already has succeeded, hasn't it? I mean, to many degrees.
I'm seeing it.
Yeah. So one thing that we're touching on is the fact that these organizations don't have that experience with collaboration, and in many cases, really the permission to collaborate and having that. So as Node adoption evolves, and we see at enterprise companies, the stronger buy-in. Once you get to executive leadership that says, all right, I value this and I want to see this happening, this collaboration happening, then that really triggers a natural series of events that Node has as an ecosystem, the primitives with small by using these small modules to have that the communication patterns where big monolithic frameworks, big stacks don't allow for that. So it's there, but many of those organizations, Matteo found, just don't have any sort of mandate for collaboration. It's all about getting your thing done. If you're accomplishing that only within your walled gardens, out of necessity, you're going to end up competing with other teams rather than having the optics of being able to see across an organization and all of the modules and the creativity that's happening through development.
I wanted to ask Joab if he has a question, or if there's any other questions from the audience right now that you would have for the panel.
Yeah, I can bring the microphone around if anybody has a particular question.
There's one right here.
You mentioned earlier that tooling is missing for Node, and you also mentioned IDEs. And now you're talking about collaboration. Is there a specific tool that IDEs could have that would help collaboration for Node?
I mean, this is just totally off the top of my head. I think it's a really good question. One of the things I've been trying to tease out, because we've been hearing the words collaboration, we've been hearing the words optics, and I keep being like, well, what in Node makes that collaboration happen? And like, I work for NPM, but anyways. What I think an IDE could have is certainly if you had like a local NPM, like a way that you could just immediately search and discover packages that exist within your organization. I think that'd be like a great start. That would solve the very first problem you mentioned there, which is like, we already have that adapter, let's not write it again. And like, that's just like a fancy type of look ahead, like a slightly higher order look ahead that like an IDE would have for just like a language API. So I think that's like something that could start with. But I think what's most important is like companies that are in that, like enterprise companies already have developers, right? Developers in .NET, Java, that's what we're really talking about. They work in IDEs. As these companies move to Node, they're being asked to do a job they know how to do, but with tooling that they just completely do not have. And so like their career depends on being able to do this, and that enterprise can't just fire everyone. And so this is what I mean by Node really does need to meet the enterprise halfway. Like, we have succeeded, the enterprise has decided Node is worthwhile, but we have not succeeded in making people as efficient and as productive as possible in Node. And that's because we are not respecting their desires for tooling.
Joab?
Anybody questions?
There's one right here.
You mentioned earlier that there are problems with semantic versioning. What's going on there?
Do you understand semantic versioning?
So, yeah, I think people just don't fully understand it. So something that's really interesting that we get a lot at NPM is people are like, especially from the Ruby world, people are like, why is shrink wrap not baked into NPM? And the answer is because NPM believes in semantic versioning. Because if you write your semantic versioning expressions correctly, you shouldn't have a problem. The issue, as many people here know, I don't know how many people here use shrink wrap, and a lot of people I know use shrink wrap because they report issues about it, is you need it because people who are publishing the packages you depend on aren't using it correctly. Like major version change for breaking changes is it's just not universally accepted, and when that happens, that just breaks semantic versioning completely. So I think it's like both a discipline and an education. Something that I also see that happens a lot at NPM is people request the ability to change documentation and readmes without having to change a version number, which I see that documentation is a first level concern, and so it should be like a patch version at least. And so people are really trying to evade changing versions. People are afraid of doing it potentially. And so yeah, just developing a discipline for it, I think is what's really important, and just simply does not exist, at least in the Node ecosystem as far as I can tell. I don't know if you agree.
I think this was all exacerbated by the fact that Node itself for a very long time avoided 1.0. So this encouraged other developers to say, "Oh, okay, minor is our major, right?" And kind of pushed back everything from there.
This is why we default 1.0 in your package JSON
Well, this
now.
leads to kind of interesting questions about the reunification, right? With io.js. What's the world like in this post-reunification world? I mean, what are some of the things that you're starting to see as a result of that split, and then that kind of the reunification?
The problem I am personally having, this is a problem I'm speaking from experience here, is try to convince enterprises to move to Node 4. So just to recap, if you haven't moved your application to Node 4 already, do it tomorrow. This is, I want to create a little bit of urgency here.
Right before the holidays, the enterprise would love that.
At least get off of 10.
So let me ask you.
That's what they're using.
So let me play
I know.
devil's advocate. Why should I do it tomorrow? Why shouldn't I just wait? What's the real reason for it?
Apart from performance, best stability, a garbage collector that doesn't explode. And
Are we seeing more explosions?
0.10 is quite a wild beast in that regard. I've been facing bad bugs.
It's the underlying V8 at this point is 4 or 5 years old. It's ancient.
Yeah.
The team that was building that has gone left, created Dart, and then left Dart and whatever Dart is, and moved on. And the current team building V8 is very, very different and heading in a very different direction. So you're really wedding yourself to the past, and as a core team. It becomes increasingly challenging for us to guarantee that we can do anything with V8 because the team at Google really can't help us because that team's not there.
That's interesting. We were talking about this last night about the Google's influence, in the programming language community. You see it with Go as well. What's the effect of that now? I mean, it seems like, is there too much reliance on Google, or is that changing?
Well, the wonderful thing that happened with io.js, with 10 and then subsequently 12, we still had this really ancient, far off the development cycle of V8 that we're working on. And then io.js, we accelerated all the way up to latest stable with V8, and that collaboration really it invited Google to work with the project more, and that has continued through the convergence. So in Node's story, it's always been on V8, and now in this past year, we finally have V8 team sitting in on technical steering committee meetings, getting feedback, and really hearing the needs of Node.js, and they're getting something really interesting back in exchange, where they're able to see leading edge usage of the language features that they're deploying that we probably won't see in front end dev, not transpiled for quite a few years.
Joab, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I've been hearing a lot about Node as a potential replacement for increasing parts of Java EE or .NET. I mean, do you see a day when the Node or the Node architecture could completely replace these enterprise?
Nothing dies. There's still COBOL out there. So I do think that there's an opportunity for Node to take potentially like a majority of this. But again, as I said, the enterprise agrees that Node is great, but we have a long ways to go before we can fully, I think, replace all those things.
Oh, well, conversely, for new jobs, new businesses starting up, will there be a point when they would still consider enterprise Java or .NET, or is it pretty much green fields?
I think that there's still quite a few .NET and Java jobs out there, and I don't think that's going to go away for a while.
I guess the other question is, what is the change that you're seeing now that Node.js is in the enterprise, and what are you seeing? What void is it filling, and how is that affecting kind of the use of .NET and Java?
I have a horror story that I could share. So let's say you want to apply a little bit of CSS to a page. And in order to do that, right, it's CSS, right?
I actually love CSS.
You want to apply a little CSS to a page. So you have to create an abstract factory and I just lost all of my front end devs here, right? If you're doing front end development and you're passionate, like over the past 10 years or so, front end development as a craft has really evolved into something on its own, and shoehorning that into Java is horrific. So you lose the best of both worlds by taking front end and pushing it into Java system. You're relying on capabilities that a good front end practitioner doesn't necessarily want to have, right? They don't want to understand how to shoehorn CSS into a Java class. They want to understand and master their craft, so they're able to do that natively, and see CSS and be in CSS and work close to the abstraction, with Node, and those factories, those classes, those are great for your back-end services. You want to have back-end data services be impeccably reliable and deliver that. But the reason why we're seeing this explosion of all your front-end developers moving to Node is because they can see what they're actually working on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure also, just to add this, I think the ability for you to have a ton of back-end services and then have a front-end developer team that knows JavaScript, knows a bit of Node, and their ability to write a middleware on top of that API and then be able to work with that middleware so that the data that they're getting is exactly what they need is super important. I think it's been coined the front-end to back-end, but Roy Fielding put it in his thesis a long time ago, so.
Yeah, well, I just want to add, it's not only about the front end. I'm seeing Node being used for stuff where you should not think about it. For example, data ingestion is actually, Node is actually possibly one of the best tools right now for data ingestion, mainly because we have all these nice flow control back pressure thing. So we can basically load data from different data source, change it, manipulate it really easily. For example, we can get some XML stuff and spit out, I don't know, JSON or CSV or SQL queries, and then execute them in a way that doesn't blow up. The ingestion system is parallel, is fast, and it's something that works really well in production. So this is where, well, if you use Node.js, but this is.
Do you think it's competing with stuff like Python for that?
I have been seeing it deployed in some occasions against Python, mainly because they were able to squeeze in much more speed out of it, because
How do you see it being deployed against Go?
In my personal experience, I was able to saturate the bandwidth on EC2 instances with Node. So I don't see, in my personal experience, I don't have the particular need to be faster. So Go provides, Go is a faster language. It's compiled and it's nice. And for a lot of tasks, it's a really good language. But for the kind of applications that I'm seeing in the enterprise and I'm seeing all the time, Node is more than enough. Like I'm speaking today about some stuff I've been doing, and I can get impossible performance out of it. So the moment, if you know what you're doing.
It occurs to me actually with bringing up Go, because the transpilation element of Go is one of the big parts for it. We're talking about Node in the enterprise, and something that we haven't talked about at all is Node's support of Windows. The enterprise is full of Windows, and Node's got some problems on Windows. What do we think about that?
What are the problems? Specifically, what are some of the...
Mostly NPM.
I mean, there's a lot of, again, it's the tooling around Windows that it's very difficult, I think.
I have to say that I've been running some training courses around that part of my activity. And what I've seen is actually not true that it has problem. It has problem for Java developer on Windows. If you are a .NET developer on Windows,
you have the toolchain.
You have all the tools, so it's a toolchain problem. So in this, I've been speaking with some friends at Microsoft and actually giving them all the possible advice. Make installing that toolchain easy. Like collaborate with us. You are the one that can do it. It's not a huge deal of problem to have that toolchain, to set up that toolchain in half an hour instead of 3 hours or 4 hours to install all of that.
You just need the punch list.
It's a knowledge management issue, I think.
We got about 5 minutes left. Joab, do you have any questions? People have questions out here that they'd like to ask?
Hi. People are going to hate me for asking this, but when you approach someone that's the Java EE house where a lot of people are doing Java EE, and you tell them they're going to do Node, just the fact that it's JavaScript, that's your first barrier right there. They don't want it. You know, like it doesn't matter how much we love it. If you approach it and like, you guys are doing JavaScript now, half the team is going to quit. Yeah. And if you look at something like WebAssembly, and there are any thoughts into making Node a polyglot platform that is not bound to the one language?
Well, I think the introduction of WebAssembly doesn't necessarily take us out of JavaScript development. So, you know, being able to integrate WebAssembly assets, you know, really could replace native modules, which, you know, a lot of the, you know, the Windows pain that we're experiencing happens around compiled native modules. And you know, the beautiful thing about JavaScript is, and we totally eat Java's lunch on this, is write once, run anywhere. It really, really works when it's all JavaScript. You know, that dream of Java that it had early on, like didn't really 100% pan out. When you have JavaScript and you're able to, you know, I've seen quite a few teams, you know, go through native modules and come out the other side and say, you know, we're actually going to only do this in JavaScript, and it makes everything about the Node.js toolchain easier. If WebAssembly can come in and be and play that nice, then, you know, whatever you're compiling down into WebAssembly, I think that's a welcome addition to the platform.
I have one thing to add, especially for J2E developers. So when some J2E developer starts complaints and say, oh, but it's JavaScript, and I actually ask a single question, having been a Java developer myself for quite a long time, I ask this question. I usually ask this nice question: how many times have you been fighting with your class loader, trying to run two different libraries of different versions at the same time? And this is actually this is a pain point. You know, I wrote a few class loaders in my career, probably you as well, and possibly everybody that has been doing some good job in Java development. They've been dealing with custom class loader and so on, and Node solved this problem right from the start.
So just to also add that, I've done a bunch of JavaScript consulting as well, and I also hear this just everywhere. It's like, oh, it's JavaScript. If you ask them why they don't like JavaScript, they usually don't have very specific answers. And I always like to say, don't blame the student. It turns out that the vast majority of the time, people say they don't like something because they don't understand it and they're afraid of being bad at their job. And that when you're able to give them an efficient, productive tool chain, something that's going to solve their problems, and you teach them that and you don't worry about whether or not they know it before, they end up being significantly happier. And all of that hating that happens, that we see across all of these languages, generally exists because of a lack of education.
And on that note, we'd like to end this panel here of this pancake breakfast. Thank you guys for participating. Thank you all for coming. Enjoyed Node Interactive. Have a great day. That's it for this week's show. Thank you very much for joining us. Audio editing and sound design for the New Stack Analyst podcast is provided by Broken Hours. You can find them at brokenhours.com. Thanks again, and hope to see you back at the show. Bye-bye.